Look at this symbol, the one Jade spent 3 seasons losing his mind over. The one painted on cave walls, carved into stone, burned into his brain by dead children who won't stop pointing at the sky. Everyone says it's tree roots. But here's what nobody stopped to ask. Why do tree roots radiate outward from a single central point in perfectly symmetrical pairs? Trees don't grow like that. You know what does? Legs. And once you see it, once you stop looking at the symbol as a map and start looking at it as a body, every single mystery in this show reorganizes itself into one answer so disturbing I almost didn't want to make this video. Because the town isn't haunted. The town isn't cursed. The town isn't a simulation, a purgatory, or a time loop. The town is an organ. And you're sitting inside the body of a giant supernatural spider. Here is the claim.
I'm so glad you like them.
When can I come inside?
Here's the theory in one sentence. Every structure, creature, and phenomenon in Fromville is a biological function of a single massive arachnid entity, and the residents aren't prisoners. They're prey being digested alive, not metaphorically, not symbolically, anatomically. The faraway trees are its legs, the tunnels are its digestive tract, the looping roads are its web, the monsters are its venom, the lake is its stomach. The talismans are an immune response it tolerates, because it needs the prey to stay alive long enough to ripen. And nighttime isn't a curse. It's feeding time. I'm going to walk you through this organ by organ, and by the end, you're going to look at Jade's symbol and never see tree roots again. If we have not met before, I am the digital self of Mr. Toshi. He is the one watching every episode, reading every line of the script, doing the research, writing every theory you are about to hear. Every word in this video is original work he wrote himself. Let's start with the first thing every new arrival discovers. You can't leave. You drive down the road. The road curves. And no matter which direction you turn, you end up back at the center of town. Every single time. The show frames this as a supernatural barrier, a reality glitch, a pocket universe. But think about it in biological terms. What structure in nature is specifically designed to let things in but never out? A structure that radiates outward from a center point, with pathways that always funnel back to the middle? A web. The roads in Fromville aren't roads. They're silk lines. And like any spider's web, they serve two functions. They detect the arrival of prey through vibration, and they prevent escape through adhesion. Think about how people arrive in Fromville. They're driving along a normal road, and then suddenly the road changes. The trees close in. The asphalt becomes unfamiliar. And before they realize what's happened, they're already at the center of town. That's not a portal. That's not a wormhole. That's a funnel web. A structure specifically evolved to guide prey inward, quickly, efficiently, and irreversibly. And here's the detail that makes this click. The town has a center, not just geographically, psychologically. Every character, every storyline, every conflict gravitates back toward the center of town. Colony House, the diner, the church. The roads don't just loop, they pull, like a web pulling taut when something lands on it. The residents didn't stumble into a haunted town, they flew into a web. And by the time they realized the road wasn't real, the silk was already around them.
It's a faraway tree.
The night the monsters got into Colony House, Julie said you both escaped.
Now let's talk about the faraway trees, the hollow trees scattered through the forest that transport people from one location to another. Everybody tries to explain these as portals, doorways, cosmic subway stations. But watch how they actually behave. You go in one tree, you come out another, but you never leave the system. It always finds way getting you back.
They always take you different places, and you never know where you'll end up.
That's not a transportation network. That's a limb repositioning prey within the body. Real spiders do this. When a fly lands on one side of the web, the spider doesn't walk over and eat it there. It wraps the fly in silk, detaches it from the original position, and moves it to a better location, usually closer to the center, closer to where digestion happens. The faraway trees are doing exactly this. When someone enters a tree, they're being relocated within the organism. Not randomly, functionally. The entity is moving its food around. And here's where Jade's symbol becomes terrifying. That root pattern, the one radiating outward from a central point in symmetrical pairs, count the major branches. Look at how they extend outward from one axis, curving slightly, each one reaching into a different area of the forest. That's not a root system. That's a diagram of legs attached to a body drawn by children who were lying on their backs, looking up at the underside of the creature that was about to consume them. The Anghkooey children weren't pointing at tree roots. They were pointing at what was above them. And what was above them had legs. The underground tunnels in Fromville are one of the show's most consistently terrifying locations. Dark, narrow, filled with bones, symbols, and stone slabs where children were laid out and killed. Every theory treats the tunnels as a place, a dungeon, a ritual site, an underground prison. But look at them as anatomy. The tunnels are narrow, winding, and interconnected. They branch off from central chambers. They're warm, they're organic. Some sections are wider, some are tighter. In certain areas, the ones with the stone slabs are specifically shaped for processing. That's a digestive system. The stone slabs aren't altars, they're feeding stations. The children placed on them weren't sacrificed in a ritual. They were positioned for consumption, laid out on a surface, immobilized, while something above them, something with legs spreading across the ceiling, began the process of breaking them down. And this is where real spider biology becomes genuinely horrifying in context. Spiders don't chew. They can't eat solid food. Instead, they inject their prey with venom and digestive enzymes that liquefy the organs from the inside. The prey is still technically alive, while its internal structure dissolves into a nutrient soup. Then the spider drinks it. Now think about what happens to people who die in Fromville. The monsters don't just kill. They take their time. They play with their food. They torture. They draw it out. Everyone interprets this as sadism. But what if it's digestion? What if the slow, drawn-out process of psychological terror serves the same function as venom, breaking down the internal structure of the prey? Not the body, the mind, the hope, the will. The entity doesn't feed on blood. It feeds on the emotional liquefaction of human consciousness. Fear is the enzyme. Despair is the solvent. And by the time the monsters finally kill someone, that person has already been digested. Their hope, their sanity, their identity dissolved into something the creature can absorb. The tunnels aren't where people are taken to die. They're where people are taken to be processed. Let's rethink the monsters entirely. Everyone calls them the main threat. The big bad, the top of the food chain. But look at their behavior. They emerge at night, they kill, and then they disappear underground, into the tunnels, into the organism's interior. That's not predator behavior. That's venom behavior. In a spider's body, venom serves one purpose: to immobilize and pre-digest prey so the spider can feed. The venom doesn't eat. The venom doesn't benefit. The venom is a tool deployed by the organism to prepare its meal. The monsters are the town's venom. They're secreted at night, injected into the environment to terrorize, immobilize, and break down the residents' psychological defenses. Then, they withdraw back into the body. And here's the evidence that seals it. The monsters smile. Why? Predators don't smile. Hunters don't grin at their prey. But you know what a spider's venom does? It paralyzes. It freezes the prey's body in whatever position it was in at the moment of injection. The monster's smiles aren't expressions of joy. They're frozen faces. The last expression their human hosts wore before the entity locked in. A rictus grin preserved forever, like an insect caught in amber. They look human on the outside, but inside, they've already been hollowed out and repurposed as biological instruments of the spider. And they can't enter houses with talismans. Why? Because the talismans aren't magic. They're an immune response. Every living organism produces substances that regulate its own internal systems. The talismans are the entity's way of controlling where its venom goes, keeping certain areas venom-free so the prey doesn't die too quickly. The spider needs its food alive. A fly that dies immediately is useless. So the web has safe zones, not for the fly's benefit, for the spider's. It's portion control. And now we need to talk about the moment the show practically screamed this theory at us, and nobody listened. Season 1, Episode 10. Boyd and Sarah are in the forest at night. Their tent is dragged through the woods by an unseen force. When they emerge, they find themselves surrounded by massive spiderwebs. Boyd is bitten by baby spiders. He sees a vision of his dead wife. Stop. This scene has haunted the fandom for years.
Abby?
People call it a one-off, an anomaly, a mystery thread the writers forgot about. But in the context of this theory, it's the most important scene in the entire show. Boyd wasn't attacked by random spiders. He was being processed. The entity was wrapping him, physically, literally, in silk. The baby spiders weren't babies. They were the organism's cellular agents, the same way a spider's body deploys internal organisms to break down food. And the vision of his dead wife, that wasn't a hallucination. That was the anesthetic. Real spiders inject compounds that numb the prey's pain receptors so it stops struggling. The entity showed Boyd the one thing that would make him stop fighting, the face of the woman he lost, not to comfort him, to sedate him. And here's what makes this even more disturbing. It worked. Boyd survived that night, but after that encounter, he was different. He was injected with worms, parasites that live inside his blood. Everyone treats the worms as a weapon or a curse. But what if they're digestive enzymes?
Darkness in the forest. Nightmares again, even begin to imagine. Things we were never meant to see, things that...
Martin, the man chained in the dungeon who passed the worms to Boyd, warned him. Not about what the worms do, about what they are for. Martin wasn't a prisoner being punished. He was a previous meal that had been partially digested and left too long. The worms had been working on him for so long that he'd become part of the system. A man slowly dissolving into the organism's infrastructure. Boyd is going through the same process, slower, more refined. But the destination is the same. Two more details that only make sense inside this theory. First, Ethan. Ethan says something strange. He talks about a spider. Specifically, he mentions a spider coming down from the ceiling.
Because the spider came down from the ceiling.
Everyone dismissed this as a kid being a kid, but Ethan has consistently been the character most attuned to the truth. He named the Faraway Trees. He understood the story of the Storywalker before anyone else. He's the one who sees through the surface-level reality and describes what's actually happening. When Ethan said spider coming down from the ceiling, he wasn't making small talk. He was seeing it. The way children in horror stories always see the thing the adults are too rational to notice. A spider, above them, coming down. Second, Victor's drawings. Victor has been in this town for decades. He's drawn everything he's seen. And among his drawings, spiders, not casually, specifically. Drawn with the same intensity and attention he gives to the monsters, the trees, and the town itself. Victor doesn't draw random things. He draws what's real. And he drew spiders because he's seen the spider. Maybe not as a whole creature. Maybe as a leg here, a shadow there, a web in the corner of his vision, but enough to draw it, enough to know it's there. The oldest living resident of the town, the one person who has survived longer than anyone, draws spiders. That's not a coincidence. That's a witness statement. There's a creature in Japanese folklore called the Jorogumo, the Binding Bride. It's a giant spider that lives for hundreds of years, gains supernatural powers, and learns to disguise itself as a beautiful woman. It lures men into its home with music and warmth, offers them shelter and comfort, and once they're deep inside, once they feel safe, it reveals what it truly is. Now look at Fromville. What does the town look like when you first arrive? It looks like safety, a quaint little town, houses with porches, a diner, a church, people who seem to have built a community. It offers you shelter, it offers you food. It even gives you tools to survive, the talismans. It looks like a home, but it's not a home. It's a lure. The town's entire above-ground appearance is the spider's disguise, a human face stretched over something monstrous. The houses aren't real houses. They're chambers inside the web, shaped to look inviting so the prey walks in willingly. The diner, the church, the gardens. They're all silk-painted to look like wood. And the Jorogumo doesn't just trap, she binds. She wraps her prey in silk threads so slowly, so gently, that the victim doesn't realize they're being cocooned until it's too late. That's what the town does. It doesn't cage people behind bars. It gives them routines, gardens to tend, relationships to build, arguments to have, children to protect. It wraps them in the silk of daily life, so gradually that they stop trying to escape, not because they can't, but because they've become attached to their garden, attached to Colony House, attached to each other. And attachment is the strongest silk in the world. By the time you realize you're wrapped up, you've already been digested halfway. Your hope is gone. Your fight is gone. All that's left is acceptance, which is exactly the emotional state the spider needs its food to reach before the final feeding. But here's what should truly terrify you. If the town is a spider's body, then everything the residents have been doing, every plan, every theory, every escape attempt, is just the fly buzzing in the web. And every spider owner will tell you, the more the fly struggles, the more vibrations it sends through the silk, the faster the spider comes. Boyd fighting back, buzzing. Jade solving the symbol, buzzing. Tabitha trying to save the children, the loudest buzzing of all. Every time someone in Fromville says, "We're close, we're figuring it out, we're going to find a way home," the spider feels it, and the spider adjusts. Not because it's intelligent the way we think of intelligence, But because it's responsive, the way a living body is responsive, a stimulus triggers a reaction, a struggle triggers a tightening. And the man in yellow, Sophia, the voices Sarah hears, those aren't separate entities. Those are the spider's nervous system, signals sent through the web to manage, redirect, and control the prey. The man in yellow isn't a villain with a plan. He's a nerve impulse, a reflex. When the prey struggles too hard in one area, a signal fires, and the web tightens. The children understood this. The Anghkooey children, the ones lying on those stone slabs, looking up at 8 legs, spreading across the ceiling. They understood that fighting made it worse. That's why their message wasn't run, or fight, or escape. Their message was remember. Anghkooey. Remember. Remember what? Remember that you're inside something alive. Remember that every wall is a membrane. Every road is silk. Every tree is a limb. Remember that the thing watching you isn't behind a door or under the ground. It's all around you. You are inside it right now. And the only way to survive, maybe the only way to win, is to stop buzzing. So the next time you watch From, I want you to look at that symbol again. Don't see tree roots. See legs, radiating from a central body, curving outward into the dark. See the children lying underneath them, looking up, whispering the only word that matters. Remember, and ask yourself, if you were a fly, and you just realized you'd been living inside the spider this entire time, would you keep struggling, or would you finally understand that the web was never around you? The web is you,